Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. With this lecture, we are continuing with our Mains 2025 series. So the topic for today is the caste system in India or caste. Right. So with respect to the caste system in India, we will see the definition as well as the features of the caste system in India. So first things first, let us trace this particular topic for our mains. So of course it comes from GS1 paper in which you have Indian heritage and culture, history, geography of the world and society. So this is GS1 syllabus where it is asked specifically the society, the Indian society, and under Indian society there is a sentence about salient features of Indian society, comma, diversity of India. So this comes from salient features of the Indian society. One of the salient feature of the Indian society is the caste system, and that is what we are going to discuss in this lecture. So first things first, what is caste? See, basically caste is a group. It's a group of people. So it's a group. What kind of group? Now it is a group which is going to have the following characteristics. What are these characteristics? It is hereditary in nature. Now initially earlier it was not sort of hereditary, it was very open, dependent upon what work you, what profession you did, what kind of food you ate, etc. But going forward, going on, as it progressed, it sort of became close, and now it is as good as hereditary system, wherein a particular child of a father from a particular caste now also has the same caste, irrespective of what work they are doing or what food they are eating. So now the nature is hereditary over here. Then it is endogamous. Gamous here is related to marriage. Endogamous means there will be marriage within the caste. So the caste system is hierarchical and ranking in nature. You can see these are the sort of ranks or the levels of caste. So what will happen, since you have these levels, the marriages will be endogamous. That means people of this caste will marry people from this caste only and not that from here or here. If that is the case, that will be called as an intercaste marriage. But caste as such has an endogamous nature. That means people would want to marry as per their own caste only. Then they have, of course, the common name, common ancestor, identification, name, so on and so forth, as well as common traditional occupation. However, with the changing economy, and the changing nature of the society, this is changing. But yes, inherently, this is the characteristic of the caste system. Further, other characteristics also include common culture. The culture would be the same. The culture would be the same. The rigidity will be there in mobility. That means what? It means that it is very difficult to have mobility, in the sense that someone from this level will find very difficult to reach this level, may never reach at all. From here to here might happen, here to here might happen, that too very difficult to happen. There will be no acceptance based on the society. And here to here maybe this close to impossible. From here to here, of course, impossible, because these are the twice born caste and this is a non twice born caste, so they are not even in this fourfold caste system, right? As a result of which there is a huge amount of rigidity when it comes to the mobility of the people in the caste system. Moving ahead, next is the distinct status. Each caste has different level here means the different status that is present. Then you have the homogeneous community. The homogeneous nature of the community. The community is homogeneous. You will not find variation or distinctness in the same caste system. To some extent, it will be there. Of course, things are changing. We will look at that as well. But majorly, it will be homogeneous in nature. Now, further, what are the main features of the caste system? So, till now we have understood what is caste. Caste is a group. In your definition, you can use any 4 or 5 elements over here. So you can talk about caste as a group which is hereditary, endogamous in nature, having common name, tradition as well as occupation. They consist of common culture, having rigid mobility, distinct status, as well as homogeneous community is known as a caste group. Now, what are the main features? So if you talk about the main features, there is segmentary division division of the society. The society is segmented or divided based on the caste. There is, of course, hierarchy, the ranking kind of a system that is present. Hierarchy. This is not hereditary. We have hereditary means the offspring will be from the same caste. Hierarchy means the ranking that is there. Then restrictions on feeding and interaction. That means interaction to some extent is prohibited among different castes. In fact, feeding is also prohibited. At times you will see that a person from the upper caste will eat food made by the person from the upper caste only and not that prepared by the lower caste. Right, there are different classifications of foods also, but for GS you need not as such know it. That will be there for sociology optional, but you should know that there will be restrictions on interaction as well as food. There will be the concept of purity and pollution. Certain things would be considered as pure, certain things would be considered as pollution. For example, non-veg food may be considered as polluted, whereas vegetarian food will be considered as the pure food that you should have. So that is the example of purity and pollution over here. Moving ahead, there will be another feature which we have discussed when we were defining caste system, that of endogamy. So the people of one caste will be marrying in their own caste. That is what endogamy is all about. Now moving ahead, the other feature includes the rules that govern the caste system. As I told you, for example, the Dalits are kept out of the fourfold system, and the other castes who are there in the fourfold system are known as the Dvija caste or the twice born caste. So if any sort of mobility is there, it will be there among those four castes and not the other, as well as rules of marriages, etc. are also there which govern the caste system. Then of course, restricted choice of occupation, restricted choice of food, so on and so forth will definitely be there in the caste system. Now, next is the factors for changes in the caste system. That means the factors that can lead to change in the caste system or the structure of the caste. So let us understand what these structures or the factors are and how do they lead to change. So the first thing over here you have is Sanskritization. What is Sanskritization? Sanskritization is a process which is undertaken by the people from the lower caste. So what they do is, the lower caste people would try to mimic or let's say copy the rituals and the things that the upper caste people are doing in order to gain higher status in the society. So this is what is meant by Sanskritization. Now once they do that, it is not necessarily that every time they are doing Sanskritization they will see an upliftment, because at times there can be a let's say a drawback, a backlash from the upper caste. If the lower caste is trying to imitate them, there can be a backlash from the upper caste, and rather than upliftment there can be of course a travesty, or let's say a backlash, or let's say not violence as such. Things can culminate to violence, but there can be conflict that can arise, but at some point of, in some cases it can lead to upliftment in the status of the person or the level of the person or their particular community in the hierarchy. Next is Westernization. Now Westernization means the Western culture, or talking about the foods, the Western food, the Western clothes. Now when you are eating the same food, high caste, upper caste, lower caste, so on and so forth, so the boundaries between the caste system, the different castes sort of dilutes, as a result of which all of us then are sort of having the similar kind of a social status, which is again linked to modernization. It's a similar concept. In fact, modernization in India is nothing but Westernization. When we modernize, we actually Westernize. Why? Because with respect to modernization, we have a huge Western bias, because we were ruled by the colonial British. Then you have industrialization, so consumerism, etc. comes over here. So sort of the culture, the things of all the people becoming similar, so that may lead to the change in the structure. Then you have political and economic reforms. Political reforms, specifically talking about reservation of seats, etc. Reservation of seats for the socio-economically backward, the SCs, STs, etc. when it is there. So it empowers these socio-economically backward caste. When it is empowered, they will go up the ladder in social mobility. I hope that's clear. Next is looking at the casteization of politics and politicization of caste. It's an important thing which you should remember, is because there can be a direct question. If not, you can at least use it in your answers. So what is casteization of politics? Basically, it's a process for, or in which political parties and candidates, they use the caste system to mobilize voters. Now, what is this concept all about? See, if I want huge support, right? Let's say a person belongs to a particular caste, X caste. Now they are standing for elections. So they may talk about that, I will give you this, I will provide you this, I will provide you that. People are like, fine, everyone talks about it. But if you realize that the constituency from which you are standing for election has a huge population of the caste which you represent, then what can happen is you can give a call to your caste people and talk about that, I will, the particular caste has been, downtrodden, has been left to rot. I am the one who's going to provide this caste and upliftment. So now what has happened? Now people are realizing that, boss, this is someone from my caste and is talking about to give some benefits to my caste. So what am I doing? I am creating a casteization of politics, involving caste in politics. I am attracting voters from a particular caste. How am I attracting voters? By raising the question, by raising the issue of caste, by discriminating based on caste, by focusing on a particular caste, so on and so forth. That is known as casteization of politics, when a political party or a candidate mobilizes voters, and when they mobilize voters, they will gain the campaign support, of course. So when they mobilize voters based on the caste, that is casteization of politics. So what is politicization of caste? Here what happens is, either an individual, of course here also individual or a political party, that is a group, either an individual or a group, from generally this casteization is happening in the marginalized section. So from the marginalized or disadvantaged caste, they use their caste identity for political empowerment. They will be talking about their own caste for political empowerment. So this sounds similar, but it is slightly different over here. Hence, important to know the difference between the two. I hope this is clear. Now, this is all about the caste system in India. Now, let us try to understand more in detail with the help of solving the previous year questions and see how to approach that, is what we will see in detail over here. So the question is, why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? So we need to first understand what is meant by fluid and what is meant by static. Here a major role would be played by the concept of mobility. Now how or what is this concept? So we have seen the triangle of the caste system in India, and this is the fourth base that is there, the fifth base that is there. So fluid means that there would be some amount of mobility that might happen. People from the lower caste system might move on to the upper caste. You can draw this diagram as well. Refer to the previous diagram, mention the caste, and you can draw the diagram as well. So there will be some amount of mobility. Now how will that mobility be? That mobility will be due to the concept of, we studied about westernization. Before westernization, mentioned this concept, Sanskritization, the concept by M.N. Srinivas. You don't have to write the thinker as such, but Sanskritization, westernization, political empowerment, when the seats are reserved also, so that is the way of government to empower. And when the people from certain castes from the disadvantaged caste come into power, that sort of empowers them. How does it empower them? It empowers them because the total status in the society, of course in India the status of in the society is a huge amount and to a huge extent dependent upon the caste that you belong to. But is it completely based on that? No. Certain thinkers argue, for example Weber also argues, again you don't have to name them, but they argue saying that it is made up of more than one thing. It is multidimensional. In fact, it is trinitarian, means there are three things involved. One is the status which is given by the caste. The other is the basically your economic power, how much land you own, how much money you have, the class status. The third is your network or the group you belong to. These three things together combine to give you the power in the society or the status in the society. Now, someone might be in the lower caste but very rich. So their total social status level would be a mix of the two. Someone might be in the higher caste but very economically poor, so their social status will be a mix of two. Plus the third thing is the group that you are representing also plays an important role, as a result of which these things might help you to move up the ladder, which makes this system as fluid. So this is one thing that you will talk about. What is the other side? The other side, you also have to agree that it is to an extent static. Static, how is it static? See, it is static because the Dalits who are mentioned over here, they are not the ones who is doing Sanskritization and all. These are basically the twice born caste. You should write this in your answer, the Dvija castes. The Dvija caste, or the twice born caste, who are doing this and ensuring their upward social mobility. Mobility can be upward as well as downward. People from bottom can reach upward and people from top can reach the bottom. So there can be upward social mobility, downward social mobility. When we are talking about fluidity, our major emphasis to have upward social mobility. So some amount can be there, but this caste is not going to, because they are not even considered as a twice born caste, as a result of which no matter how much Sanskritization, no matter what they do, they will still find it difficult, as a result of which there is static nature. Plus, as I said earlier, the caste system was to an extent open. Now it has become closed, more and more closed. So it has sort of become hereditary in nature. And since it has become hereditary in nature, another aspect of it being static. So this is a 250 words, 15 markers. So you have to write a lot in this. Why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? So first you can start so let us see how we will approach. I hope the understanding of it is clear. I hope we know that what we are going to use in this, right? And remember guys, earlier, let's say 8 years, 10 years back, the questions, at least 8 years back, the questions in society were such that when it was related to caste system, this, that, Indian society questions were to a lot of extent dependent upon the current affairs, right? So whatever going on in the current affairs, any act, any bill, any issue, any Supreme Court judgment or case that is going on, the questions were sort of dependent on that and asked from that. But now what has happened is the questions in the Indian society has become tough. If you look at this question of 2023, you need static knowledge of caste system in India, without which you cannot solve this question. You cannot write the answer. And hence the emphasis on these specific topics in our mains series, as well as the classes also. So let's see how do we approach. So we'll take a holistic approach for this question, and then the second question also we will look at it. But here I'll also tell you the weightage of words, this, that, and everything. So why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? So first, you will start, of course, by the introduction. Now, introduction should not be longer than 25 words. 25 words is more than enough. 20 to 25 words is more than enough. In the same manner, there needs to be conclusion. So you have a conclusion again of 20 to 25 words. So your 40 to 50 words are sorted over here. You are left with around 200 to 210 words. Now here, you are asked, why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? So introduction, you can talk about what is caste identity, what defines caste identity, or any current related thing that is going on. You can mention all that. And then you talk about its, see, in the main body, you will be talking about the fluidity, right, around 60-75 words. The static nature, again around 60 to 75 words, right? Then you talk about what challenges are being faced, around 25 to 30 words. Let me be very specific, around 25 to 30 words, and the solution that you can see for those challenges being faced, around 25 to 30 words. This is your answer. So first thing in the answer, the structure is very important. Secondly, along with the structure, the weightage is also very important. If you just simply talked about the fluidity 150, 200 words and very less static, it's not going to cut the cheese. It's not going to help much. You will get low marks. If you focus very less on fluidity and too much on static, not going to help. They have both been asked, more or less is the same weightage that is there. Sometimes some questions, something has more weightage than the other, but here both are almost similar. Of course, you can make 60-40, 40-60, that is fair enough, but very close to 50-50, it has to be there. So you mentioned this, you mentioned this. Now this challenges solution as such is not asked, that is why we are taking it to a very, very small extent, but we make it a point to mention these things also, and then you can conclude your answer. So this is how the entire weightage to the question should be. I hope that's absolutely clear. Now, whatever questions we are taking up, you should make it a point to write the answers. You can, type in the comment sections also. We will respond to you, or you can send across your answers. We will give you feedback to all the students. Absolutely, you don't have to enroll as such. Just send it across. We will still provide you with the feedback. Moving ahead to the next question. Now, next question is a 10 marker. Now, in 10 marker, you have to be very to the point. At the same time, take into account the amount of words that you are using. Because it's a 10 marker, 150 words, you cannot have the liberty to have 20-25 words of introduction and conclusion. In fact, you should try to start addressing your answer starting from the introduction as well. So that skill you should learn. And as far as conclusion is concerned, the solution of the way forward can be clubbed with conclusion in order to save words and say more in less number of words. I hope that is absolutely clear. Moving ahead. So let us see the question. The question talks about, has caste lost its relevance in understanding the multicultural Indian society? Now, when you read this, the answer is of course not. But that does not mean you completely go against that statement to a complete extent. No, you have to still show the other side as well. Your introduction can begin with, why is this question being asked? Because there is a possibility that this kind of thing is happening. So you can begin your answer by agreeing with the statement to some extent, but then saying, however, the relevance still remains because of this issue, and then this will be your elaboration, and then you conclude your answer. But let us look at the question. Has caste lost its relevance in understanding the multicultural Indian society? Elaborate your answers with illustrations. So you have to explain, give examples over here. You have to illustrate that particular thing. Interestingly, just 10 marks, 150 words. So how do you proceed? Of course, the introduction. Now, introduction itself can be such that it starts addressing the answer. So what could be your introduction here? Talking about, because of XYZ reason, the caste to an extent is losing its relevance in the modern society, because in multicultural Indian society, or in understanding multicultural Indian society, because of this. That is your introduction. It is not just the introduction, it has also started addressing the question that is being asked. So that will be your introduction, which also addresses the question. Once that is done, then you can directly jump into the other side of it. Right now, it is completely up to you. If you majorly agree to this, you can continue with agreeing to that statement and depending majorly on that only, and very small amount of disagreement, right? Or you can also, what you can do, agree to some extent, but majority of it disagreement, right? You can, both the things you can do, but if you are doing it, you need to be absolutely sure about it, and you need to back it up with illustrations. One thing that you should not do here is 100% agreement or 100% disagreement should not happen at all. I hope that's absolutely clear. So complete agreement and complete disagreement should not happen. It should be both. So this you have sort of agreed. Then start by saying, however, the caste system is still relevant, because then you mention about why it is still relevant, and then you look at the way forward and conclude. You can both club it up, because it is just a 150 words or 10 mark question. So you basically can club the two things over here. I hope that's absolutely clear. So this is how you will be approaching this. the weightage will be very important. See, introduction in a 150 words or 10 marker question can be just 15 words and 15 words conclusion, but here if you are able to start addressing the question here itself, then it can exceed to 20-25 words, right? Because you are already addressing it. So in that case it can be, but try to keep it to 15 words, then you are left with 120 words. Now in that 120 words, you can have around 30 words of disagreement and around 80 words of agreement, and then way forward and subsequently conclude the answer. So this is how you should approach this particular question. And whatever theory we have studied, very important, certain questions on caste cannot be answered without that theory. Example, this question of 2023. Thank you.